So for today, we're just going to do a few things, and then we're going to take that top 20. So the first concept is probability. So if I have 8 red ones, 5 yellow ones, and 7 green ones, these are like Fruit Loops sitting on the kitchen table, and I turn off the lights and I shuffle them all up and I grab one out, what's the probability I get a red one? Well, first off, that's how we write that. P of 1 red. That's how you say the probability of getting a red one, okay? Well, I want you to remember a couple things about probability. I'm going to give you like 3 to take notes on, and if you write it down, you increase the probability you remember it dramatically. The official probability is wanted outcomes over possible outcomes, but I figure if you just remember it's what you want over what's possible, and it's a fraction. Well, this really isn't that hard then. So Nolan, what do we want to happen? Yes, and did I say your name wrong? Yeah. Just say your name for me.
Noah.
Oh, I couldn't read it. My eyes are too old. All right, Noah.
We want a red one.
So how many of them are there?
8 red ones.
So there's 8 outcomes that we want over how many different things could happen when we grab for Fruit Loops?
23.
I think it's 20. Add them all up, I think it comes up to 20. So let me just ask, could I reduce that? Sure. If you find the faster way of reducing, that's cool, but here's my favorite way. And some of you were never taught this, and I'm amazed you were never taught this. Look, they both can be turned into a multiply problem with a common factor. Boom, 2/5. Okay, so if you struggle with those sometimes, I personally think that's the fastest way. That's how you reduce. All right, so 2/5 is my final answer. Could you make it a decimal? Sure. If you like calculator time and you like to go 2 divided by 5 equals, sure, you can get a decimal, but 2/5 is good enough for me. All right, what's the probability of getting a yellow then? Well, I just showed you, so I bet you can do it without me. Don't say it, write it. Sylvia, what do you say? There's only one yellow one? I know what you did. Just tell me what you did, though. It was what out of what first, and then you got your final answer.
It was 5 out of 20.
It was 5 out of 20 because there was 5 of what we wanted out of 20 possible, and then you reduced, and I could do it like this. 5 times 1 over 5 times 4, 1/4. Raise your hand if you had that one right. Okay, good. Any questions about it? What if I take 2 of them? This makes the problem significantly harder, okay? And the then doesn't even really matter. If it's dark and you grab 2 of them, you could think of that as you grabbed one and then you grabbed another. Know what I mean? Even if you grabbed them both at the same time, you would have grabbed one and then you would have grabbed another one too. All right, so what's the probability of that? Well, the red one is still the same. It's super simple. Okay, so the red one, it is easier to think of as then, all right, but the probability of 1 red one, well, that's 5 out of, oh, wait, what did we get that before? That was up here. It was 8 out of 20. There we go. 8 out of 20 for the red one. And then how about the yellow one? It is not 5 out of 20. 5 out of 19. Because you already have a red one that's been taken out. So the bottom changes. Okay. Now, you could redefine the problem and say, I'll take a red one out and then put it back and then go try again. That would change it, but if you grab both at the same time, you obviously can't replace the one. And so, anyway. And then, the next thing I want you to know is that when you have probabilities, almost always you will multiply your probabilities. All right, so I'll give you one. You're walking home. Do you get that there's, between now and when you get home, there is a tiny probability you're going to get bit by a dog who's just running around in your neighborhood or here at school? If there's a chance, let's say it's a 1 in not a million though, probably more like 1 in Maybe a million. I'll say it's 1 in a million chance you're gonna get bit by a dog in a way home. There's also a chance you're gonna get struck by lightning. Is there a chance you will be struck by lightning? Yes. Is it high? No. Let's say it's 1 in 10 million. So what do you do to those probabilities if you want to say you were the most unlucky kid in the world, you got bit by the dog, and you also got struck by lightning? You multiply probabilities. Okay, so you multiply your 1 in a million times your 1 in 10 million to get your final probability. So multiply probabilities. Write that down. You multiply your probabilities. Now, why wouldn't you add probabilities? Because it wouldn't make sense. If I said, let's say that there's a 1 in 4 chance that I pick a kid in here who's got black hair, okay? And then I say there's a 1 in 2 chance that I pick a male. Okay, well, what's the probability that I'm going to pick a male with black hair? All of a sudden the probability just went way up. It doesn't make any sense. You don't add probability. You multiply it. Okay. All right, so next thing, red, then yellow, then the green. All right, I want you to make a fraction for each. And this is like, first you pick this, then you pick that, then you pick that. So something does change each time. Please write down those 3 fractions. I don't want to make you wait too long. How many of you are already done? Already have all 3 fractions? Okay, a few good. Thank you. Nick, what was the probability of red again?
8 out of 20.
Got the yellow one fresh in mind?
5 out of 19.
And that went down because there was 1 less to pick from, right? So, got it, Nick?
7 out of 18.
7 out of 18, yes. Now, here's one that's even more tricky. Then another red. So I want it to be red, yellow, green, and then another red. How many of you caught that there aren't 8 red ones anymore? Because you already picked one. Good, so it was 7 out of 17. Raise your hand if you had that. Good. Okay. I think you get probability well enough. That's about as deep as we go for the beginning of the year here in probability. Okay, one way we twist the question might be like this. In the word Bob, what's the probability you would grab a random letter and it would be a B? 2 out of 3. What's the probability you'd grab a random letter and it would be an O? Okay, so it's the same concept. It's just that the letters are now like the Fruit Loops. Okay. If I change it to Bobby, that's my dad's, what he was called when he was a kid. What was the probability that it would be a B that you grab randomly? 3 out of 5, so 3/5. I think you get the idea. Okay, so what else do you have to know besides probability? The next thing we talk about is distance formula. If I just asked for the distance from this to this, most of you would be like, 2, done, boom. But what did you really do? You take this one and you subtract that one. That's how you can for sure get that answer. And some of you might have, well, I think of it differently. Fine, but would you agree that 10 minus 8 would give you the distance between them? Okay, then what's this? Well, it's similar. If I want the distance between this and this, it's like the hypotenuse of a triangle, and there's a formula for that. It is called the distance formula. And I'm going to give you a way to remember it. I'm going to pause this and tell you a story. Okay, so square root of 10 minus 2, those are the x's, and the y's are the 8 and the 12, so it'll be 12 minus 8, since you can do it any way you want. I choose the easy way. And that's 4 squared, which is 16. So then 8 squared and 4 squared is 64 and 16. So square root of, say it. All right, any questions?
Is our final answer supposed to be more simplified than that?
I'm okay with you saying square root of 80. I agree that can be simplified. So if we want to talk about that for a second, it would be square root of, and you try to find something nice in there. Like 4 goes into that nicely. So square root of 4, and the square root of 4 times what makes 80? 4 times 20. And then you could go, oh, I know that. 4 root of 4 is 2. So it's 2 root 20. Would it be good to do that? Absolutely. Absolutely.
Taking up
But,
a lot.
you're right. But you do not have to do this on this quiz that you're about to take, okay? You will have to do that as part of one of the problems. So one of the problems is like this, like square root of 12. And it's like 4 plus or minus the square root of 12 over, let's say, 10. You will have to do that on one of the top 20, so I'm glad you brought it up. So can you all simplify the square root of 12? Don't say it. Think about what that is. The answer is like 3 root 5, but that's not it. So can you do this? Silver brought up a good point. On the problem you just did, I'd be fine with you leaving it alone. But when it's something simple like square root of 12, you should be able to make that into square roots. Noah, what are 2 things that make a 12?
3 and 4.
Which of those 2 works out nice?
4.
So final answer?
What's that?
So final answer is? Because that worked out nice, right? So, do you know? Square root of 4 is 2. So final answer is?
6.
2 root 3 is all there is to it. See what I did there? Root 3 and the root 4. And the root 4 was 2. And then it's 2 times the square root of 3. All right. Okay, so that was about finding the distance formula. Next is midpoint formula. Much easier. Watch me do it. It's the average x and then the average y. I know how to average. You just take the 2 numbers and you add them together and you divide by 2. So what is the average of 9 and 4? It's 13 when you add them together. Divided by 2 doesn't work real nice. Thanks a lot, server. But that's okay. It's going to sometimes be a fraction. That is technically 6.5, I think, right? Yeah. And then the average y is adding together the 8 and the 6, and that makes 14, and divide by 2, and that's easier. It's 7. So 6.5 comma 7 would be the midpoint. That would be right here. 6.5 comma 7. Average the x's, average the y's. That's one of those little things that you learn in geometry. I guarantee you knew it, but it's probably disappeared since then, and we just need a few seconds to remind you. It's on the top 20. It's one of these. So is the midpoint. So is that simplifying square root things. They're all on here. That's why I think today's a good day to take this thing. We just reviewed 3 of them that some of you might have gotten wrong. Now you probably get right. And that didn't take very long to review with those few. So anyway, here's some reminders about this class. In the first few minutes of class, please don't come up and ask me a math question. I know it seems like, oh, he's sitting there. He'll help me right before we start class. I am busy, super busy. It'd be like this. You got a pilot that's got 30 people on their plane, okay? And the pilot is just about to take off because the beginning of class is really important. That you got to do that right or the rest of the hour goes and go well. Okay, so I'm the pilot. I'm just about to take off the plane. Is it a great time to talk to the pilot right before he does the takeoff? No. How about after he's taken off and the plane's on cruise control? Much better. Okay, so that's more like the end of class. In the last few minutes of class, you can ask me anything. But at the first few minutes of class, it better be like a crisis, like, Mr. Server, I have to right now go here. If that's the case, you can talk to me. Okay, if it's like, I need to know this right this second, and it can't be because I want to understand last night's homework. You don't need it that bad. But if you need to go somewhere, like you got to go to the bathroom, you got to, I don't know, you've got to go talk to a teacher or whatever. That's the only kind of thing you should ask me in the first couple of minutes. Last 10 minutes, ask away. Ask anything you want. Okay, where do you find out what you missed yesterday? The video that I made last night. That's what you find out what you missed yesterday. How about future? I'm not telling you. If you're like, I'm going to be gone next week, tell me all the things I need to do. Sorry, can't do that for you because it changes day to day. So if you need to know what's happening in the future, sorry, you'll need to get a time machine. Okay, if you want to know generally, are we taking a test on Tuesday of next week? I can tell you that. But if it's I want my lessons ahead of time, I cannot do that for you. But I can always tell you that you can turn it in afterwards with no late penalty for if you were excused absent from school. So you can always watch the video later. And when can you get math help? In the mornings on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, very good. Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and if you forget that, because you probably will, please don't email me and ask, but go in the welcome folder on Schoology, it's right there, I promise. It's the top folder on Schoology. It says exactly when you can get help. And it's not that I don't want emails from kids, I cherish them. I just don't want them to be about simple things like that, where you could have found it without asking me. And there's 150 kids. And if they, once a day, ask me a simple little thing, I have 150 emails to reply to. It's really hard. Okay, so save those for the good stuff, like, hey, Mr. Server, I've been having a really tough time. I struggle with my mental health, and this week has been rough, and anything you can do to help me out would be good, or whatever. That's deep, and that's important, and you should tell me that. Okay, but little stuff, please try to look it up first. All right. The homework is the next thing in the document, and it always, after our notes is where the homework is, right? And so there it is, and I'm going to tell you a few you can skip. Because we already did these and everybody seemed to rock them, I'm going to have you skip the first question. Okay, so skip problem 17. The reason it doesn't start on number 1 is we already skipped problems 1 through 16 out of the online textbook. That's a free open source textbook. Get a copy of that in the welcome folder. On this one, a lot of people don't understand what this little chart is for. If you had trouble getting this to download into Notability, you can take a screenshot of it, and that'll go into Notability real quick. Go ahead and do that, and then write down this along the edges, and I think you'll understand. That's the red die rolling 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6. This is the other die. I'd like to think of them as different colors. When I roll a 1 and a 1, you don't ever say, I rolled a 1 and a 1. You say, I rolled a 2, because you add them together, right? Or if you roll a 6 and you roll a 5, that would be an 11 when you put the 2 dice together. This is what they're talking about to make this chart. It really helps to get the probability. See, some people think the probability of getting a 4 on 2 dice is just, well, there's 4 out of the biggest number you can get is 12, so it's 4 out of 12. It is not. The probability of getting a 4 is, you got to look up all the ways to get a 4. If you rolled a 2 and a 2, you'd get a 4. If you rolled a 3 and a 1, you'd get a 4. If you rolled a 1 and a 3, you'd get a 4. So there's 3 ways to get a 4 out of how many different things can happen when you roll 2 dice. Look at the grid. There's 6 by 6, so there's 36 things that can happen when you roll 2 dice. So the probability of getting a 4 would be 3 of them out of 36. So I've started this problem for you. It is important. You will have to know this. So I'd recommend doing it. Yes?
If the die is rolled twice, doesn't that mean you're looking for
It's
one
the
die and a 4?
So you're just adding those 2 together. I recommend you think of it as 2 dice being rolled together. But it's the same concept. Do you get 1 die rolled twice is the same thing as 2 dice rolled once?
No, but this question is, I thought that it meant that out of the 2 dice that you roll, you're rolling 1 time.
I get that confusion, but trust me, it's what I just said. Okay, so it is, you are rolling 1 die twice, which you could say this is your first roll and this is your second roll, but you add them together. So it's a lot like you rolled 2 dice twice. All right, and this one's important too, so I recommend doing the other one at the bottom of the page. There's 52 cards, so actually wait. No, on a test we would give you all the different cards, because some people don't play cards and they don't know what's in the deck. So we're going to cross that one off. You can skip that one. Next one, I think you're going to be tested on both of these. So I would recommend practicing both of those, skipping this one. Okay, and I think this one's kind of a stretch question, and you don't have to do this one, and you don't have to do that one. Okay, so I've cut the assignment down quite a bit, and then I have one more weird thing to say about that assignment. It's recommended today, but not required. So some of you will be like, sweet, not doing it. Oh, well then, just don't understand that you might get one more wrong on your test, which might bring you from an A to a B if you don't do it. I recommend you do it. It's just, you've got to grow up enough that I don't have to like give you points for it. That you have to do stuff just because you want to understand it. Okay, so tonight's homework doesn't have a Dropbox. Strongly recommend you do it, but I can't make you. All right, but you do have a weekend and you'll probably have the time. So I strongly recommend it, and you'll probably do better on your test if you do. You have to get strong enough mentally to be able to make those right choices. And that's not going to happen on all your homework. Sometimes it's required, sometimes it's not. All right, so now is the part where we're going to do the top 20. And we're not going to just like clear your desk up. I want to talk about it first. And I want to talk for the people that are at home. The people that are at home don't have a paper copy of it, but a PDF is going to be posted. So if you miss this, you can just take it at home with the PDF that's posted. You print it out and you take it. You can do it on your iPad too. Once you're done with it, there is a Schoology quiz where you type in all the answers and it'll grade it for you. And the main thing I want people at home to know that aren't here today is that it's totally understandable that you might only get 10 out of 20 on this. Okay, so don't get stressed if you do badly on it. I actually think a low score on this is just fine as long as you work at it over the next few days, because you'll see the same exact top 20 again and again and again. You'll probably take it at least 3 times. Not the same ones with the same numbers, but the same problems, just rearranged, and it'll have different answers. So these same 20 skills though, and you'll see that 3 times. Today's just your first try at it, and hopefully you'll build up and get better and better. And that's all I got for the video for today.